another one.
How to implement a code coverage tool for testing behavior-driven development slash Gherkin test. I'm a fairly new test automation developer and need a bit of advice in terms of how to implement this, or is it even possible? Basically, we have a .NET web application and all our tests are written in Gherkin's syntax using Python. I want to measure what percentage of the code is covered by our Gherkin's tests. Our tests are automated and run nightly, but against different instances of the same code base. For example, we have, let's say, 4 environments that get deployed with the application. One of or 25% of the tests are run against one environment, another 25% against another environment, etc. I'm looking into using ncover or dot cover, but a bit confused about on how that would go. All right. So let's put up our 5 minutes and then we shall figure this out. Okay. So I think that you are a bit mistaken on code coverage. Um, so code coverage is primarily meant to be covering like unit test scenarios, not for automation, like for end to end or feature automation. Um, so if you are actually like writing the unit test, then that would work. You can technically use BDD um for like unit tests and stuff like that. Not necessarily the most recommended one for the most part. There's like if it's being written in if the code is being written in .NET, you could probably use like NUnit or something like that. But the code coverage tool is supposed to be for like unit tests, right? And you want to get a and the unit test should be the one that you have the most coverage on, right? The BDD test, the Gherkin test, if you're using Gherkin syntax in Python, then I'm going to be assuming that you're using behave because that's what I use. Our test is like pretty much our code base is pretty much in C sharp, and we and our automation framework is in Python. So and we use Gherkin, so we use behave. But the thing is, I think you're misunderstanding the code coverage, right? What I would do, like what I've normally done, is the coverage percentage of our test cases. How much automation do we have um, of our test cases? And then the code coverage part is how much unit test coverage do the developers have for their code, right? So that's why that's why it's the question is a little bit off, right? Because the way that code coverage tools work is so right.
Message.
If you're not familiar with this, right, the way that code coverage tools work is it takes all of like it analyzes your code base and it looks for how many of the unit tests are hitting the different paths of the code base, right? So let's say you have an if statement, and in the if statement you have like 5 different conditions. So if this, then do this. If that, then do that. And like let's say you have 5 different, right? But your unit test only cover hits 2 of those scenarios, right? So then it would say that your code coverage would be 40%, right? So there's a 60% that is missing, and then you need to add unit tests to cover that other 60%. And let's say there's a whole function that doesn't have a unit test that's not being covered, right? Then it's going to like that's how the code coverage works. It's based on the unit tests it's based on the unit tests that are hitting the different code paths, right? It's not based on your automated regression tests because it doesn't cover that. Simply put, it doesn't cover that, right? And that's why the code coverage tool that you're referring to wouldn't wouldn't work. What I've done in the past, right? What I've done in the past, I use a tool called I should probably be getting sponsorship for this, right? Or some type of benefit. But I used it was called from the company called Inflectra, called Spyro It was a test case management tool, and we would have all of our test cases logged in there, and then we would have our automated test linked to there, so that once the automated test would run and it would whether pass or fail, it would update. It would create a new test run and say what was the status of the test run, right? Whether it passed or failed, it would log in there, the date, time, everything, right? The steps that it took, where it failed at, all that, right? And it would show what is the automation coverage percentage of the test cases. So let's say we have 100 test cases, but we have like 70 of them automated, then it would say that there's a 70% of automated coverage of the test cases, right? So that's why you're a little off. And it's totally understandable being a fairly new test automation developer, right? And I think that you're just misunderstanding the concept of code coverage tools, especially like when you're trying to figure it out for the end cover, dot cover, all of that. That is supposed to be what the software engineers are supposed to implement because they are supposed to be writing unit tests and they should be testing their code coverage. And I mean, like you can implement code coverage as well, but it's not you who is necessarily going to be responsible for those unit tests being written. I mean, you could participate in that. I think like I would love to participate in writing unit tests as well. But the key point of the matter is the test that you're writing. I do not think they're going to fall under the code coverage tool that you're looking for. I would say though, check out like a report portal that can log your test runs and everything like that, and they can check like the when the tests fail, identifying why it failed, classifying them. It can, it has some AI technology, some machine learning technology to be able to determine if a test is flaky and stuff like that. So I think that'll be a good use. But for your main question of implementing a code coverage tool, I think you should implement it, but I don't think it's going to be checking for what you're working on. All right. So shout out to that question. Very, very good question.
If you enjoyed the fascinating information shared in this video and you want more, be sure to hit the subscribe button to Tech Coach Ralph to be notified for new videos.